Alfred Nobel built his fortune making dynamite. His invention changed warfare forever. So why does his name now sit on the most famous Peace Prize in the world? The answer starts here. I'll be honest with you, I went out to film this place expecting a straightforward story. Big explosive factory, famous name, good drone footage, but the more I looked at the maps and the more I flew the ground, the less it felt like one story at all. The factory turned out to be one layer. There's older stuff sitting underneath, coal, farms, a river that doesn't behave itself, names that have hung around for 400 years. So come with me on this one, because once you've seen it from the air, you can't really unsee it. Start with the ground itself. Long before any factory, this was a wet, low-edged land, shaped by rivers and tides and coal. Go back far enough and Ardeer wasn't even a peninsula, it was an island, cut off from the mainland by a sea channel that only silted up in the 1600s. By the year 1600, Timothy Pont's map already named settlements out here. Snodgrass, Bog End, Longford. People had farmed this ground and mined under it for generations before anyone famous arrived. And this is where the old map suddenly matters. There's a plan from around 1820 showing the Longford Misk colliery and part of the lands of Snodgrass, with the outlines of Misk taken from an earlier plan made in 1796. So the ground had a name, a history and a coal problem long before dynamite. And the coal problem brings us to the most remarkable thing this landscape ever did. On the 20th of June 1833, the bed of the River Garnock collapsed. It dropped straight into the coal workings underneath it. The river poured away into the mines and ran dry for nearly a mile. People stood and watched fish flapping in the empty channel, until the tide came back up and filled it in again. That's the kind of ground this is, hollow underneath, and it had already swallowed the river once. Even before that, the ground was being worked in ways most people have forgotten. In 1772, Scotland's first commercial canal opened right here. It ran from Ardeer to Saltcoats, 2¼ miles, carrying coal and barges to the coast. Built by the landowners of the Ardeer estate to get their coal to market. The canal closed in the 1830s, but that drain you can see from the air beside the road bridge, that's what's left of it. The master got still there. So by the time anyone thought about building an explosives factory here, this ground had already been mined, canalled and had swallowed its own river. Then in 1871, a Swede shows up, Alfred Nobel. You know the name, you probably know the prize. What you might not know is what kind of man he actually was when he arrived here. He'd been banned from manufacturing in England after his product kept killing people. His own brother, Emil, died in a nitroglycerin explosion at the family factory in Sweden. Nobel himself had been forced to build his test works on a barge in the middle of a lake because nobody would let him near a town. He needed somewhere remote, somewhere the blast wouldn't reach anyone. And these dunes at Ardeer, bleak and sandy and right on the coast, were close to perfect. These dunes were exactly what he needed, remote, isolated, right on the coast. A blast disappears into sand and the sea meant he could ship his product straight out. He bought about 100 acres off the Earl of Eglinton. Production started in 1873. What happened next was enormous. By the early 1900s, this was reckoned to be the largest explosives factory in the world. It had its own railway, Nobel's private line, with trains running workers in twice a day until the 1960s. The Western Scottish Bus Company ran tens of buses a day. ICI later built an entire housing estate for workers, with streets named after every town across Britain where the company had another plant. Billingham, Runcorn, Widnes, Slough. A map of industrial Britain laid out in the Stevenston suburb. At the peak, somewhere close to 13,000 people worked here, from Stevenston, Kilwinning, Saltcoats or Drawson. Every family in the 3 towns had a connection to this place. To them it was never Nobel's explosive works, it was the factory, or the dynamite. And it could kill you. That was always true. In 1844, an explosion in one of the cartridge huts killed 10 women and girls. The youngest was 14 years old. It wasn't the first, it wasn't the last. A blast in 1938 was felt as far away as Kilmarnock and Ardeer. As recently as 2007, a huge fire took hold and stored material and burned for hours. And the landscape tells you that danger was always expected. Look at those long structures from the air, each one wrapped in its own earth bank. Each one spaced well apart from the next. There were magazines and press houses where propellant and explosive was stored and worked. That banking wasn't decoration. If one of them went up, the earth threw the blast outwards, not sideways into the building next door. The whole site is a landscape designed around the certainty that sooner or later something could go wrong. And that building, still standing when almost everything else is gone. Get up close and it gives itself away. Those aren't windows. They're brick, laid with gaps so air could pass straight through the walls. This sat on the propellant side of the works. The open brickwork was almost certainly there to let solvent fumes evaporate safely away from what was stored inside. Built like a bunker, which is most likely why it's still here. Now, Alfred Nobel. By the time he died in 1896, the invention he'd built this factory around had changed warfare forever. Dynamite, blasting gelatine, cordite. The stuff that came out of this ground and places like it made possible a scale of destruction that nobody quite managed before. Nobel knew that. He'd always known it. In 1888, a French newspaper accidentally printed his obituary. He wasn't dead, but he read what they wrote about him. They called him the Merchant of Death. He rewrote his will, left almost everything he had. The fortune built from dynamite, from this ground, to fund 5 prizes, the last one, the one for peace. The Nobel Peace Prize has been awarded to people like Nelson Mandela. To the people who worked to end conflicts Nobel's own inventions helped make possible. And it traces back here, to these sand dunes, to this river, to a man who read his own obituary and decided that wasn't how he'd want to be remembered. ICI pulled out in the 2000s. The land passed to private hands. What got left is what you're flying over. Empty roads, foundations with buildings long gone, earth banks with nothing left to guard. Some of it you can walk, the beach and the dune paths, a lot of it you can't. Private land, locked access and a contamination legacy in the ground from over a century of making explosives. And this is the part I didn't see coming. All those decades of keeping people out, all those safety zones that couldn't be entered, they protected this place. The Garnock Estuary and those old danger grounds are now one of the most important wildlife habitats in this part of Scotland. Over 1,000 kinds of insect recorded here, among the best ground for bees in the whole country. There's a campaign right now to get it properly protected. The landscape built to make the means of destruction is now quietly keeping rare things alive. And it's still not finished. One part of this land never closed. A company called Chemring still makes explosives and defence equipment on a fenced working section of the site today. So Ardeer lives 2 lives at once. Half of it is falling down and filling up with birds. The other half is locked, active, and not somewhere you go for a wander. So when somebody calls this empty scrubland, I just think no. This ground was farmed, mined, canalled, and had its river swallowed before Nobel even arrived. Then it fed a city of workers, absorbed their danger and buried their dead. Then it was left. And then, quietly, it came back. The Nobel Peace Prize exists because a man read his own obituary in a French newspaper and couldn't live with what it said about him. That man built his conscience on this ground. The roads that go nowhere went somewhere once, and the land out here is still doing what it's always done, quietly getting on with something just out of sight. If your family worked at the factory, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. What they did, what they called it, what they remember. A lot of this place only exists in people's memories now, and that matters. And if you want another bit of Scotland with the same kind of hidden history, I've got one over here. Have a look, and I'll see you in that one.